Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome, welcome. We're so thrilled that you're joining us here today for our virtual session. Hopefully, if you're joining us, that means you know that you've signed up for the Conquer Your Career Leadership Development Program session. We're really excited about this conversation today because these can be really exciting opportunities for MBA women after they graduate with their degree. So we're going to dive into that today and answer all of your thoughtful questions. So really excited about this discussion. But for those that I haven't had a chance to meet before, my name is Libby Davis. I'm a program manager for the MBA programs team here at Forté. And like I said, thank you for taking time out of your day to come and prioritize your professional development and engage with the Forté community. Like I kind of alluded to, this event is part of our Forté's Conquer Your Career virtual series, which offers an inside look at what it's like to be a woman with an MBA working in various fields. So with that, we've got lots to talk about, so let's get started. So we are, as you know, talking about leadership development programs. And so these programs are really designed to offer a breadth of diverse professional experiences and can be a really interesting next step for MBA candidates. Our panelists that are joining us here today have explored these opportunities and they've really found their fit in business. And so these MBA alumni will share their experiences and discuss the knowledge, skills, and abilities that can help someone to be successful in a leadership development program and, of course, beyond in their career as well. So let's meet our panelists. So first, I'd like to introduce you to Reena. Reena is a commercial advisor in corporate business and is in corporate business development at Chevron. And she comes to us with a degree from Rice University, the Jesse H. Jones Graduate School of Business. So Reena, welcome. We're so thrilled that you're here today. We'd love to learn a little bit more about your career journey. So feel free to take it away. Oh, Reena, I think you might be muted. Oh no, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh, perfect.
Perfect. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. But
No,
hey,
no worries. It's the gremlins of the internet, but we can hear you now. So feel free to take it away.
perfect. Well, thanks everyone for having me today. So as Libby mentioned, I am Reena Shukla. I work at Chevron in our corporate business development group as a commercial advisor. Prior to getting my MBA and prior to really my career, I went to Texas A&M University in College Station. I majored in psychology and had a big interest in political policy and public policy. So right after undergrad, I went to Washington, D.C., and I worked at a couple of think tanks for over 5 years. One was the Cato Institute, and the other one was the Conference Board, where I worked in public relations. So it was a lot of working with the media, going to Capitol Hill, writing pitches, op-eds, articles, setting up interviews, which was really fun and exciting, and especially because today is election day, very relevant. But in that career, while it was fun, I felt like there wasn't a lot of growth. And in that time, I did work on a little bit of energy policy, so I knew that I wanted to be in that industry and live in Houston long term. So I came back home to Houston, went to Rice for my MBA. At the time, I was deciding between consulting and going into industry, which is what I learned about the Chevron rotational program. So I interned at Chevron in the summer of 2020, which was right during COVID. And this was in their US Retail East department. So working with a bunch of gas stations in our districts within those gas stations. Luckily, I was able to come back in August of 2021, where I started the rotational program. And I'll get more into the details about that rotational program as the session goes on. But thanks so much for having me.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Reena. I'm definitely excited to learn more about your experiences and the rotational program too, which is ultimately what we're here chatting about. So next up, I would love to introduce y'all to Shibani. Shibani is a group product manager at CIBC and graduated from Western University IB Business School. So Shibani, welcome. Again, thrilled that you're here. We'd love to learn a little bit more about you.
Thank you so much for having me here. Just to check, you can hear me, right? Okay, great. So hi everyone, I'm Shibani. I'm working as a group or principal product manager with CIBC. It's a bank here in Toronto downtown for those who know about it. But just to take you through my journey, I did my undergrad and my bachelor's from Delhi University, India, with majors in finance. But like anyone else, I ran away from finance as fast and as soon as possible and entered the world of technology and startups back in India. We were seeing a boom in e-commerce, so I thought maybe it'll be nice for me to try my hands in startups. I joined a couple of startups back in India and worked mostly in product and growth. I got the opportunity in 2019 to lead the expansion of a hotel startup in India to the US and came here to Dallas, worked here for about a year and a half before we were struck with COVID and the hospitality and hotel industry went for a toss. So I went back to India to be with my family during COVID, but also to kind of reflect on where my career journey was going to go now, given that we didn't know when COVID was about to end, if the travel industry will ever take a spin back, or just what the future would be. And I thought it would be good to put my GMAT score to use then and sort of go back to the B school, brush up my foundations, and see if I could like accelerate my career journey through a B school or through the journey of MBA. I started applying, came to Canada and to do my MBA in 2021 from Ivy Business School here in Toronto as well. Graduated in 2022 and joined CIBC as a graduate leadership development associate. We'll speak more about this program in a few minutes, but graduated this year from the program after 2 years as an associate and joined eventually as a group product manager within the digital banking and open banking teams. So happy to be here and discuss more about my career journey in a bit.
Awesome. Thank you, Shibani. Very excited to chat more for sure. And then last but certainly not least, I'm pleased to introduce you to Snigdha. Snigdha is a Pathway Operations Manager at Amazon, and she comes to us from Duke University, the Fuqua School of Business. So Snigdha, welcome. Could you tell us a little bit more about your career journey?
Hi, everyone can hear me, yes? Perfect. My name is Snigdha Shankar, and I'm currently working as a Pathways Operations Manager at Amazon. Prior to business school at Duke University, I used to work as a mechanical engineer in India. I've worked with cars a lot, and I used to be a vehicle test engineer. So it was mostly taking the cars apart, testing them, fuel efficiency testing, and very technical, very detailed mechanical engineering work. And I also realized that in order to get anywhere close to designing an actual part for a car, it would probably take me about 10 years. And I was very disillusioned with that industry. I didn't want to be a mechanical engineer anymore, or specifically in cars anymore. And I decided I needed an MBA. I needed to broaden my horizons. So I came to Duke University, where I was once again part of the pandemic class of 2021. It kind of threw everything for a toss, but I was very, very lucky to find the Pathways program. The Pathways program is Amazon's leadership development program. Amazon itself has a few different kinds of leadership development programs. Pathways is the one for field operations and actual last mile logistics and first mile logistic operations. I've been with the company 3 years now, and I've been in multiple different buildings and in multiple different business lines. So I can speak to a lot of different aspects of operations at Amazon today.
Wonderful. We're very excited to hear more from all three of you. So with that, now that we've met everyone and we know a little bit more about where they're coming from, let's dive into our panel questions. So the first question is actually going to be for Reena. So Reena, just starting at the basics, what is a leadership development program? And then what are the benefits of a rotational development program from like a career perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So a leadership development program is a structured program that is designed to cultivate leadership within employees. So throughout your rotations, the company will provide some training, some mentorship, exposure to different areas within the business. And this is all with the goal of preparing the program members for future leadership roles. And some rotational programs vary in the nature of their rotation. So for instance, for Chevron, we specifically have a finance and commercial rotational program for MBAs. There are a couple of other ones. There's an HR one, there's a supply chain one, but whichever industry or group you kind of go to within that company, the goal is to get a diverse experience and build sort of well-rounded leadership capabilities. And for me, the benefits of a rotational program within a leadership development program is you get a broader understanding of the business. So for me, I didn't have an energy background really at all. So like any organization was fair game for me. I was learning new things in each rotation. You identify your strengths and interests. I knew I wasn't a finance person, so I went the commercial route for most of my rotations. And even after the program, you develop diverse skills. So for a finance and commercial program, that could be negotiating skills, building deal structures, a lot of financial modeling if you decide to go the finance route, learning about debt structures, things like that. And for me, I think the biggest benefit was networking opportunities. So because you do go through 4 different rotations, you build in some good equity with managers throughout the company. And so when you do get the chance to roll off the program, you have people who can vouch for you for your kind of full-time role. That's a little bit longer. But yeah, you have increased engagement and retention as well. The idea of these leadership programs is to have you be in the company for longer, really as long as you can be there. But yeah, those are some of the benefits and the goal of the rotational program for me.
That's great. And I love that you really highlighted that it's an opportunity to see multiple different areas of business. And I think that certainly is a benefit of a lot of these programs. So I am actually going to jump to Sachdeva for our next question. So Sachdeva, we talked about broadly what a leadership development program is, but what are some key components of kind of the programs itself? How might our attendees here today determine the right program structure for their needs? I know Reena was talking about the specific program she was in. You mentioned that there's like several different types of programs at Amazon. So that's kind of maybe the lens with which I would think about this question.
Sure. So to Reena's point over here, also the rotational program that she's in right now, it's rotational. The program that she's in, it kind of structures you to spend a certain amount of time in different business units and different business lines. So that becomes a rotational program. The one that I'm in is a leadership development program. So it's more about staying in one business unit or staying in one org and growing within that org. So I think the key similarities over here is that there's a time structure. So maybe you spend a year in each business unit if it's rotational, or maybe for a leadership development program, there's certain milestones that you need to hit by certain years. So one of the basic aspects of either leadership or rotational development program is certainly the time-bound aspect of it. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's determined by the amount of time you spend in one org, or it's determined by how quickly you're able to scale your promotions and get to the final, or graduate from the program and get to the final role that they've assigned for you. So that it's a time-bound structure. It's very structured. And there's the advantage of these programs is it's kind of like business school 2.0, right? So you're not just let out loose into the working world. You're kind of treated as, okay, you're now going to be in our company and we're going to train you in all of the ways that we need you to function in this giant organization, because this is how we need you to survive for a very long-term career within our company. So it becomes a very nice structured program, and you have the room to ask a lot of questions and learn very quickly. Something that you may or may not be able to get in a unstructured program, or if you just join, for example, as a program manager, even within Amazon. The commitments aren't the same because there's no time commitment if you just join as a program manager. Whereas if you join as in the Pathways program, it's still operations, but there is certainly a time commitment attached to every part of your career. The second key component is going to be the mentorship aspect. when you're hired within a leadership development program, there is an investment that the company makes in your development. So they invest a lot of time, they invest a lot of resources, and they certainly invest a lot of leadership attention towards you and towards your development. So it's not just that you've been hired. There's also a lot of outreach from a lot of leaders within the program, maybe people who've also graduated the program, who will reach out to you and just literally inquire about your well-being. If you have any questions, how you think you're doing in the program, if you have any questions about your career and about your growth. And it's nice to have someone looking out for you within the company, because these people are people who also graduated from the program, and they have a vested interest in making sure that the program is still attracting good talent and is still able to retain their talent. So yeah, I definitely think it's a very good post MBA opportunity for everyone.
I love that you mentioned it's an investment in both ways, right? You're investing in the company and the company is investing in you through these kind of more unique training opportunities. So I'm really glad you mentioned that, Snigdha. So the next question I'm actually going to give to Shibani. I know we're jumping a little bit around, but we've talked a lot about kind of how these programs are structured and what makes them special. Shibani, from your perspective, how can someone make the most out of their rotational program or leadership development program experience? And then what recommendations do you have to really stand out amongst your peers?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that question. So just leaning in a bit on what Reena and Snigdha said before. So I had a hybrid program where it's basically a leadership development program. So you go through ranks, but you're also in a rotational program. So you're through different teams for 6 months each, and you've got to pick those teams or like your, I guess, subjects that you want to kind of master. So getting to the question of how you can like make the most of this and basically stand out, I think to what Snigdha said, this is actually MBA 2.0. So you would have a lot of other people who would be gunning for the same rotations sometimes or the same leaders and things like that. But I think it's to stand out, it starts with really reflecting and understanding what you're bringing to the table as well as what you want to learn. So there could be different reasons for why you're getting into this rotational leadership development program. One could be for someone like me and like probably Reena, who we'd never been in this industry before. So I'd never been in corporate banking or banking in a bulge bracket bank before. So I didn't know what to do with the strategy. So one could be you want to just learn about the banking in general. And then the strategy that you take over there is, okay, for the next 2 years, I'm going to select the rotations which basically grow me across a breadth of areas instead of a depth of areas. So I just want to grow across the bank. I want to network with more teams and just try to know how each of the team work with each other or how they're connected at a strategic level. The other way to go about this could be that you've worked here before, but you're looking at this as a career acceleration. You've probably worked in a bank before or close to it in a financial industry, but now you're trying to move up the ranks in strategy, but you have a very clear idea of where you're ending up. Then you're coming in here with a purpose of networking and sort of choosing rotations that are similar to your skill set, that will add to that skill set in some way and land you in that job that you sort of envision getting at the end of 2 years. So these are two very different approaches, and there's no right and wrong in a leadership development program. But I think it starts with just reflecting on what you're here for. What is it that you're getting on the table? And do you want to go on the path of learning about that industry, or do you want to go down the path of sort of networking? The other thing that I would say is that find idols who have graduated for the last, like I'd say 5 years from this program and are in that same organization. And sort of you envision a similar growth story with them, or you relate to them. Find those leaders or those people and try to kind of get them to mentor you, because I feel like more than just leaders, you also need some people who've been in those shoes and who are at your level to sort of be those workplace best friends to kind of lean on and sort of take you through this journey and help you when you're like selecting rotations or networking or make introductions around the organizations and things like that. So find some of those people that you can relate to in terms of career growth journey. The third, I would say, is find an executive sponsor. Now, some of the programs would be very active in like connecting you to executives. some would not. Some would let you go around and kind of find it your way. But you need to find an executive leader in the organization. For me, it was an SVP in banking and enterprise strategy that I thought could help me and make introductions, could sponsor me, or could just lead me and direct me to the right path to take whenever I get confused. So find yourself an executive sponsor. This is really important. They will help you a lot in just the longer run as well within the organization. And network, and network. I think across levels with sister teams, with stakeholder teams, with people who've been through this program or are in other program, with leaders, just network. Use this time to kind of I used to build, I'd say, a plan where I would find out one new person to network in the organization, regardless of where they work every week. So it was a personal kind of a check where I would network with one person every week. So I think make that kind of a plan, push yourself out a little bit, and don't be scared to try, because for me, I saw this as a huge trial and error kind of a playground where I could try a few rotations and see whether I'm good at it or not, or whether I want to do that for the longer term and not. So I think this is a really good time to just reflect on that career journey and try to understand where you want to be and find that space for yourself in the organization.
I really appreciate that you spoke about how both self-reflection, being honest with yourself about areas that you need to grow or want to grow, but then also being very strategic about how you address those with the program that you're in. So I really appreciate that, Shibani. So my next question, we're actually going to go back to Reena. So Reena, you talked about how you had an opportunity to kind of be in different business units at Chevron. So can you tell us a little bit more about how your career path has really benefited from working across these multiple departments? What have you learned? What's been exciting? Anything you want to share like that?
Absolutely. So I can give some background as to what kind of rotations I was in. So Chevron is a majority oil and gas company, although now we are venturing into different types of energy transitions and newer energies. So my rotations, the first one was in our chemicals group that was split between finance and commercial. The second one was down in our refinery in LA. That was a mainly financial rotation. The third one was in our Chevron New Energies group, which focuses on energy transitions. That was a commercial one. And then my fourth and final rotation was down in Argentina in our upstream commercial group. And so after the program, I rolled off into our corporate business development group as a commercial advisor. And I will say, so in my first rotation, I had a manager who I worked for. And then he later moved on to be sort of the career representative for the commercial business development group. And at the time when I was rolling off the program, I had a chat with him about what my interests are, what I'm kind of looking for. And I remember saying, man, I really wish there was a role in our corporate business development group that was posted at the time. I would love to do something like that because I was targeting our asset commercialization career ladder. And then a week later, he was like, guess what? This opened up. I'm really glad you told me. Why don't you go ahead and apply for it? And because I had already worked with him and put in some good work, he was there to kind of represent me when they were going through deliberations on who would get this career spot. So when it comes to how my career path has benefited from this rotational program, that's a big one. So I think I touched on before, you do put in some good equity with the managers, and these managers, as you grow in your career, so do they. So they may go on to become executives in the program, in the company, and things like that. And then also, not only the networking piece and not only the good equity with managers, but I have learned a bunch of skills as well throughout the rotational program. So I also didn't have a financial background. So when I was in a financial rotation at one of our refineries, I learned about business planning and how that whole process goes and how it goes up to our board of directors by the end of the year to get approved. And that's applicable to really any group throughout the company. And that's how business planning works. In our chemicals group, I learned about how we handle inventory. In our C&E group, I learned a little bit about monthly close and quarterly close and how our accounting practices go. So then when you do move on into your full-time role, you have all this background knowledge and you can be a little bit more knowledgeable and contribute more to these conversations when things come up and you're like, okay, yes, I already worked on that. So I may not be an expert because these rotations are so short, but I know what's going on. So I think those two things are how I've benefited most from the rotational program. And of course, you make friends throughout the program as well. It is like MBA 2.0 in that you have a class that you start with. I had 9 people in my class, and then the following classes as well, you kind of mentor them, and you have mentors from classes above you, and so it's the camaraderie factor is great as well.
I love everything that you said. And I think that it's so true that, you know, in each of these roles, you clearly learn something that's prepared you for your current job and beyond. So very excited that that has all been a part of your Chevron journey for sure. So my next question, we're actually going to jump to, let's go to Snigdha. So Snigdha, could you describe the recruitment process for these rotational programs or leadership development programs? What strategies or tactics did you use to prepare for your MBA level interviews? And then are there any sort of like specific prep materials or approaches that you would recommend as our audience members here today are preparing for that step?
Perfect. And I think there's also someone that asked a question about the recruitment opportunities, about how to find these leadership opportunities. So for me specifically with Amazon recruited on site. So they came to Duke and they talked about all of the different kind of options for careers at Amazon. Some of them were product roles, some of them were program management roles, some of them were financial roles. Amazon specifically has 3 leadership development programs. One's in finance, one's in their retail leadership development program, and one is the operations leadership development program, which is what I'm in. In terms of the actual recruitment and like the mechanics of the actual recruitment, it functions kind of like the same way as every other Amazon interview and every other MBA interview. You have a phone screen that is round number 1. So you have a resume review, first of all, and then you have a phone screen based on that. And then you go forward from that and you have a panel interview. It's 4 people and about a half hour or 45 minutes each interview. And they will test different skills and different aspects of your skill set that they want to make sure matches with Amazon. Specifically for Amazon, the 14 leadership principles are very well known. You can easily Google them. And that is something that we live our lives by here at Amazon. And this is not something I expected 3 years ago before I joined the company, but those leadership principles have entered my daily vocabulary and I now speak Amazon. But they actually prefer that in the interview. They want to see that you're able to highlight all your skill sets based on those leadership principles, because that's how we make business decisions here at Amazon. That said, the structure of the interview is very similar to any MBA recruitment interview. You have to be very clear. You have to follow the STAR format, which is the situation, task, action, and results. It's similar to how you get into your MBA as well. And it's just basically highlighting your story, highlighting your accomplishments, and highlighting different factors of your resume that you think would be a good fit for the company. But yeah, and as for how they come to the campuses to recruit, that varies from company to company. Specifically for MBA leadership development programs, I think most of them hire full-time in the second year of your MBA. Some of them will have internship programs as well. Most of them just come during your second year, and they specifically recruit for, yeah, basically second years of MBA. They'll come and recruit you there.
I love how you talked about like really make sure, of course, like in addition to preparing for this interview, but really make sure you understand like what, you know, do your research on the company as well. How can you find ways to kind of meld that into your interview experience? So I think that's a great thing to mention. And I love that you did that. And obviously it was very successful because you're in the Pathways program, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to put a question over to Shibani. So Shibani, we've kind of talked about these programs and how they're beneficial and how they prepare you for management in the future. So how might some of our folks that are here today facilitate this kind of more successful career pivot into management roles? Even if maybe they don't have past management experiences, how could folks here today really leverage their business school experience to their benefit and to prepare for this transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think someone also asked in Q&A, how do corporates consider women with 10 years financial but 0 corporate? So I think I just want to start by saying that when you're in this program, and I think Reena probably like highlighted this before as well, you need to know that they're investing in you because they want someone from like someone who's got an outside perspective and not necessarily financial perspective, right? The kind of people that I've seen getting in this program are generally those who are not having any financial previous knowledge whatsoever. And that's okay, because if they wanted someone to do that, they do have their internal leadership development programs as well, where they're trying to kind of internally grow candidates. So when they're coming to an MBA school, they're coming for those like external and great perspectives and ideas that you have and you hold. So my first would be to not self-select yourself or just think that you're not like good enough for that, because that is what they are looking for. So first would definitely be this. And to your point, maybe about how to kind of make a successful career pivot, or sort of like, even if you don't have any past management experience, I think the reason of this program to exist, or the point of this program to exist, is to give you those 2 years of training and management training to be able to kind of take up management roles successfully. So through that investment process that they're doing, they're going to give you chances to mentor new associates that are coming in. They're going to give you chances to kind of lead smaller teams of analysts through different roles, or just lead projects at a larger scale involving a lot of stakeholder management, a lot of executive communication. And I think that is what prepares you. I've seen the people in these programs also have like even within, like just speaking for my bank, but all of us had a lot of executive exposure, which meant that the programs or the projects we were leading throughout those 6 months, we were supposed to, at the end of that program or at the end of our rotation, present it to an executive leader about how we did and what we did. So there was a lot of executive communications, a lot of those kind of skills that were sort of inculcated throughout, or like sort of intertwined very cleverly in this entire program, to sort of help us step up from that. What I think the biggest thing that I took from my MBA program was also just how to kind of reach out to people and network, and sort of find people who were willing to spend some time to kind of help me guide on that journey. You would see all of these programs have a lot of, like, I'd say, like your alumni, even like from your school or from other schools, and they're great people. Like they're always over there ready to kind of help you, very approachable. So just like kind of reaching out to them, and just trying to see what their thoughts were, how could like you shape up your journey, and just getting them involved in your journey would sort of help you move towards like management, to a management role as well. For those doing a career pivot, that gets slightly more difficult. But again, having said all of this, I just want to kind of again highlight the fact that when you're going through this kind of a program and getting placed in a management position, it's more so the interpersonal and the transferable skills you're getting than the hard skills. The hard skills, I feel, are easier to kind of get eventually. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I went into a rotation that was in corporate strategy, mergers and acquisitions, and like enterprise strategy. And I have never done mergers and acquisitions before. And then they kind of put me through like a proper course to do like financial modeling and stuff, because they believe that throughout time and throughout projects, I would be able to kind of get those skills. What they actually wanted to see was that, am I fun to work with for 14 hours a day? Like, because we're going to be put through like really stressful, tough situations for 14 hours. So are you someone that they want to have on team for 14 hours a day? Would you be able to add something in terms of other transferable or interpersonal skills, which would just make it fun to have you and to go through a like really stressful situation with? I think that's what they're looking for when it comes to leadership positions and like management positions.
I think that's a great point. And yeah, being able to work with folks and collaborate with folks and work with different stakeholders and kind of understanding all the nuances that go along with that, I think is such an important part of the management and leadership journey. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Shibani. Well, we have a little bit of time for some questions from the audience, which is fantastic. And I know we've kind of been answering them as we go with some of the questions that we have, but if there's anything that's kind of popped up since we started our conversation today, feel free, to put that in the question and answer component of the Zoom webinar platform. And so the first question that I'm going to share with our panelists today is, we have someone who has mentioned that they already have a few years of management experience in kind of small or medium-sized organizations. So this person is curious, like, really, is there a benefit to doing a leadership development program, kind of given this information, or would it not be maybe the best choice? Obviously, like, each person's experience and situation is different, so we'll kind of I hope what folks today will take what we say with a grain of salt, but just curious about your thoughts about leadership development programs for folks that maybe already have some management or leadership experience.
I can actually answer this part of the question, if that's okay. So the Pathways Development Program is two-pronged. So there's the MBA pathways and the military pathways. Now, as an MBA pathways, I come with maybe 4 years of experience or 5 years of experience and my MBA. My military counterparts come with a minimum of 10 to 12 years. And they're military leaders. A lot of them went to West Point. A lot of them they're very well ranked, and they were basically exiting out of the military and coming in. They were pivoting to private careers now. So for them specifically, this became a very easy way of pivoting from, for example, a career that they've already been very well established, but in a very structured, very public sector kind of way. And they had to pivot into an industry that they were perhaps not familiar with, or just they're just done with their service and they no longer want to be part of the army, I guess. So for them, yeah, this was a great way to dip their toe into a private industry. And it was a great way for them to figure out if Amazon is something that they want to build a career in. So I think even if you do have experience in a different industry or a different company, if you've already had leadership experience or management experience, I think when you move into a leadership rotational program, you can afford to be a little bit more discerning about what you want out of it. So you can afford to have that much more maturity. You have that much more background already. So you're able to be very clear on what you want to learn and what you want to gain out of a leadership development program. And I think that it kind of puts you at an advantage as opposed to someone who just comes in blank and does not know what they want out of it, and you already have a game plan coming in. So I think it can go both ways. And like for every other MBA question that is asked, the answer is always, it depends. So good luck with that.
So very true. So very true. It definitely depends. But I like the way you kind of approached it from both sides of, like, here's how it could be beneficial, or you may decide you want to go down a different path. So I think it's all about knowing yourself and knowing what your end goal is from that experience. So thank you for mentioning that, Snigdha. So we have a couple of other questions, which is great. So this person specifically is wondering, outside of being recruited on campus, where can folks find more information about these leadership development programs? Are there any, or rotational programs? Are there any websites that kind of collect all this information? Or is it more like you would go to each individual website and do your research yourself? Reena,
Yeah, I can take that one. Yep.
Feel free.
Okay, so for Chevron specifically, yeah, they did come to campus, but otherwise, even when I was trying to figure out about other leadership development programs, Googling and Reddit actually have a lot of information. So yeah, so I use those. And then of course, going to those company websites, if these companies don't come on your campus, you can, like, LinkedIn is a powerful tool. You reach out to a bunch of people who you see have gone through the program, or even program managers, you reach out to them and you kind of figure out, okay, where are my skills? Why do I want to go into this program? And that's like that's some of the initial legwork that you'll have to do yourself. But I don't know of any websites that consolidate all of these. So you'll just have to do some of the research yourself.
I'm gonna second Google, Reddit. And this was, again, during my MBA application journey. I think the Poets and Quants website also really helped, mostly just to research what people do after business school, or what kind of companies come to recruit on campus. So yeah, just start with Google, start with Reddit. It really helps kind of just understand what the landscape is, and then you just start to go down a rabbit hole and you'll figure it out.
I would, sorry, just also add here. I was actually I took the other route. Although CIBC does come on the campus, but I did not go for CIBC in the first round of recruitments. I went to CIBC on the second round of recruitments because in the first round, I wasn't even sure that I wanted to do banking in general. So I was like, maybe not. But just in the second round, because they didn't come to the campus, I think the other thing was that you also work very closely with your career management teams on campus. They know your story, so they know pretty well on the kind of like alumni who've ended up in similar situations or similar lines. They can help you with that as well. So I got connected to an alumni who was working in this program at that point. And then I connected with the alumni, just chatted with them to see if there's more opportunities, if they're coming for a second round. It turns out that they did, but I had a head start in that networking process and everything. So I got a pretty like clear understanding of what that process would look like. And then I applied for the second round and got in. So like you should also just venture out and try to kind of get from your, I think the insights from your career management team about like people in your similar shoes or profiles and where they kind of ended up to know more about these opportunities as well, for sure.
Thank y'all so much for sharing all those insights. I think it's really helpful to get a sense of how folks find these opportunities because it can be so, everyone's journey is different and it can be different school to school. So I'm glad that we have kind of a breadth of experiences that we could talk about today. And this is probably going to be our last question, just for the sake of time. But one of the folks that are here today, they're curious about how you expressed your short and long-term career goals during, thinking back to like your MBA application process even. Were you specifically mentioning a desire for rotational programs or leadership development programs, or was it more general? I think this person is excited to talk a little bit more about these opportunities in their essay. So curious if anyone has any recommendations.
I can start and then probably like have Snigdha and Reena sort of add into. For me, no, I think for a lot of people, the general thing that you say in your application is consulting. So that's like plan A for pretty much everyone. And I feel like a lot of people do not even really know about LDPs before coming to the MBA program. Because like all of the LDPs, the way their like designations on LinkedIn and stuff is written, it's pretty convoluted and confusing. So a lot of people are not really aware about the LDP program, especially someone who's not coming from North American industries. They've not probably heard about this. So I think for me as well, consulting was my first. But then I sort of went down the journey of sort of networking a few existed like current MBA students and sort of understanding what they're recruiting for. Heard a lot about these LDBs, but my applications were already in by then. However, this was immediately before my interviews. And the thing is, the way that our interviews were structured was that they kind of delved a lot into like your short-term and long-term goals in the interviews to see if you actually have a good knowledge about how you can get, like, what are the exit opportunities for you, and if you actually have a good grasp of where you're going and the direction that you want to go in. So they delve a lot into that. They grill you and they'll ask you about like plan Bs, plan Cs. So that is when I said, okay, maybe like, yeah, if consulting doesn't work out, I'll try for LDPs because they end up taking you in strategy or core strategy roles. So I think that was my journey of how I realized about LDPs and sort of applied to LDPs. It was not a part of my application at all, but more so around my interviews, because there is going to be a lot of questions about like how your short-term and long-term goals are like connected to it. And I think from that perspective, again, I think from your short-term and long-term goal perspective, it's easier to just say, okay, consulting, but like have a journey. And I think there's an equation that you need to build, and that equation should be your undergrad plus pre-MBA equals to your MBA plus post-MBA. So how do you get the skills from your pre-MBA and your undergrad and shift it to your post-MBA skills or like to your post-MBA goals? And I think once you get that equation or that storyline clear, you would actually have a really nice short-term or long-term story to say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if you ask most post-MBA students that what they put in their essays versus what they're doing now will probably not align. So I also put in consulting because when I was applying to MBAs, I didn't know much about other career paths. I knew about consulting and I knew about investment banking. So I was like, okay, I can connect my pre-story to consulting, because, consulting, you do a lot of variety of projects. But yeah, so that's how I connected. But then once you get into your MBA program, the world is your oyster. You can go out and learn about any sort of industry. You can network with whoever you want. And then, sort of build your career goals from there. So I did consulting interviews on campus is when I learned about the Chevron rotational program. I interviewed for that as well. And then when it came down to decision time, it was, more so about my personal lifestyle. I wasn't really keen on working 80 to 90 hours per week. And then, maybe going on and finding another job 2 to 3 years down the line. So Chevron for me just provided that stability that I was looking for at this stage in my life. So I will say, like Shibani said, just have a fluent story about what you're doing in your undergrad, what you're doing pre-MBA, and what you want to put in your essay. And then once you get into business school, you can explore really whatever you want, but still have that coherent story.
I think those are all great points. And I also love that you all mentioned, or Reena specifically, you were saying, I think if you ask most people, their career interests may shift and change as they get exposure to different types of careers and different opportunities when they're in their MBA. But I'm excited that the person who asked the question is already thinking like, hey, an LDP is a great option for me afterwards, and that you were already looking into that. And so I'm excited for that person's journey and curious to hear what they write about in their essay. But with that, we are actually a little bit over time. We're over time by 1 minute, and I'm a very punctual person. So unfortunately, that means we have to say goodbye to everyone here today. But again, I just wanted to thank our audience members for being here and again, prioritizing their professional development. And of course, I want to thank Sachdeva, Shibani, and Reena for being here today and sharing their experiences. I know I learned a lot about rotational and leadership development programs. I'm confident based off of the questions that we got that our audience members did too. So with that, we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we hope that everyone here will join us for another Forté virtual session soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.